Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to New Hope in the Lord. I'm Reverend Joseph, your host. I thank you for watching our broadcast today. I have bad news and good news. I'll give you the bad news first. The bad news is that you're a criminal. What? When you go to a doctor and you have pain, the doctor will say, what's your pain from 1 to 10? 10 is real bad and 1 is very little. And so you kind of let the doctor know. Well, when I say you're a criminal, there are criminals that have 10 pain, murderers, rapists, arsonists, people that hurt other people. They're up in the 10. But there's other ones that are maybe just like 1 and 2 and very low. And they kind of do things that you would not think is breaking the law. For what's a crime when you break the law? When you go through a stop sign and you don't stop and you kind of go slow, you're breaking the law. And if the policeman's there, he could give you a ticket. When it says 55 miles an hour and you go 56, you're breaking the law. By right, the policeman can give you the ticket. So let's just turn it to the Bible. Before Moses was given the 10 Commandments by God, people did not know what it was to be a criminal, to break the law. But when God gave the 10 Commandments to Moses, it lists the 10 Commandments, what makes us a criminal. It's lying, it's stealing, it's using the Lord's name in vain. It's having other gods before Almighty God. It's taking your neighbor's goods, coveting after them. That's what a criminal is in God's sight. Okay, you might just be a 1 or a 2 in that, but you're still a criminal. That's the bad news. The good news is that through Jesus Christ and his blood on Calvary and the cross, he has paid the price so that our slate is clean. If you receive Christ in your life, you become a child of God, you become born again, and your slate is clean. Whether you're a 1 or whether you're a 10, in God's sight, it's all clean, like my guest, Rex Duval. Rex, thank you for coming on the broadcast today. And so what were you in your life from 1 to 10 as a person before you came to Christ?
Probably, if I'm being honest, a 10.5.
I was going to say maybe a little bit more.
I was definitely off the charts.
And just say right now where you are now, since you came to Christ, briefly, compared to being off the charts before.
Well, where I am now, I just had some wonderful anniversaries. I celebrated my 32nd wedding anniversary with my beautiful bride. We've got 2 glorious children, Rex and Lexi. And Rex is married to just a wonderful girl, Micah, who we love like a daughter. And then I just celebrated my 72nd birthday, which I never thought I would see 30. So these last 42 years have been a gift. I've been able to accomplish so many incredible things in my life. I've got no formal education, and at one point even experienced a drug overdose, which left me in a very bad way so that I couldn't even put 2 sentences together contiguously without losing my train of thought. And I remember the psychologist who met with me right afterwards, and he said to me, you seem like a nice young man. He said, but you're going to have trouble remembering where you live. He said, do you carry a wallet? And I said, yes, I do. He said, make sure you write down your address, put it in your wallet so that when you forget and you look at it, it'll jog your memory and you'd remember where you live. So in terms of where I've come from now, God has just It says in 2 Corinthians that every believer in Jesus has the mind of Christ. And when you start, the more you start believing God's word, the more you become transformed under the power of that word.
And Rex, it's so your testimony, no atheist wants to see it or hear about it, because when you when somebody hears your testimony, they know there has to be a God. What about just briefly about ministry? Where has God taken you in ministry? Then we'll go back to your start of your insane life.
I am a pastor, which just means shepherd, in primarily the prisons. I've worked off and on over the last almost 47 years that I've known Jesus, or I should say he's known me for a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
But I've been walking with him in August, 47 years. I started in prison ministry in Los Angeles at LA County, and then just continued that when I moved to New York. And so I've done a lot of work on Rikers Island. I've done a lot of work in the state prisons, in Green Haven, which is our largest maximum security prison in New York State, and Wallkill, Fishkill, Woodbourne, which are medium security facilities in New York. And then I do a lot of life coaching. So I do a lot of mentoring, and I mentor mostly men, some women, but of every ilk, men who are businessmen and very successful, and athletes who have been very successful, to a lot of our men and women who have no place to lay their head at night. So,
and this is coming from a man who has no education and couldn't put two sentences together.
correct.
But God.
But God.
So let's go back to your upbringing and start sharing about how the devil wanted to knock you out of the box from birth.
So that's a very interesting story, and I'll just give you some highlights of that. My father was a very famous actor. As a matter of fact, he was arguably the most famous commercial actor of his time. He was in Colombian coffee commercials. He was the original Juan Valdez.
Oh, the original one.
The original Juan Valdez. He did it for the first 10 years of the commercial and could have done it longer, but he suffered from terminal ego, and he would always commit the cardinal sins that no one could forgive him for. He'd sleep with the director's wife or punch the producer in the nose in front of the rest of the cast. And people wanted to forgive him, but they just couldn't. And so ultimately he lost the commercial. But they would film the commercials in Colombia, and he had a passport which enabled him to not be checked when he'd go through customs. So he would bring back cocaine and emeralds, and ultimately started getting me high on cocaine when I was 12 years old. He thought this would be a great way to bond with my son. And so garbage in, garbage out. He experienced a lot of garbage growing up. It's an amazing story of his life in Cuba, and then poured that garbage into me.
So was he a playboy with women? You say with the director's wife. Did he have your mom must have been like it must have been really rough on your mom. Well, what did they have any relationship?
So they met in a Broadway show. My father was the handsome singer,
Debonair.
very debonair, and my mother was one of the gorgeous long-legged dancers in the show. It was the last rendition of vaudeville with Olson and Johnson.
Wow.
And they fell in love. She got pregnant. He married her, and here I am, proof of the pudding. So he started cheating on my mother on their honeymoon with the coat check girl.
On the honeymoon.
Yeah.
Wow.
And continued that throughout. And ultimately, from the misery and pain he caused her, she responded by cheating on him.
Wow.
But she had felt the marriage had disintegrated to a point where there was no fidelity and no connection there for her. So Yeah, he was a playboy.
And now here you have parents that are not parents, but they are parents, but they're
In
not
name
parents. Yeah. Did it make you angry?
Yes. That's where the anger started expressing itself. Now, I believe that because we are all sinners and all have fallen short of the glory of God, and that the wages of sin are death, that there's this death syndrome in every human being which produces some kind of a level of anger. The way we deal with it, some of us show it more clearly than others, but the anger and resentment is definitely there in everyone.
How was it about how did it affect you? Did it affect you in a introverted way or extroverted way or both?
Both. I think it starts inside and then it brews and then it just comes out. I was always a very articulate and expressive kind of an individual, so that's just how I was always wired. So whatever I was feeling internally definitely let itself out, and and I just took it out on everybody around me. The thing about being angry is that if you don't allow God to deal with it and change you, if you don't deal with it directly, it deals with you and it takes you over, and then you wind up making everyone around you miserable.
And the thing is, if I'm correct, Rex, is that it's affecting you, but the person you're angry at, it doesn't affect them. They're just going.
Correct.
They have freedom,
Correct.
but yet you're bound up. And so now, evidently your mom and father got divorced, right? And then did your mom get remarried, and was he a better man if she did get married than your horrible father who wanted you to bond with you doing cocaine and becoming a drug addict, right?
So my father did get divorced when I was 14. And my mother remarried an alcoholic atheist Jew named Arthur Stein, who was then publisher of McCall's magazine, which at the time was the largest women's circulated magazine in the world.
So you have a father who's phenomenally known maybe all over the world.
Yes.
And then you have a stepfather who's known because of the Woman magazine. And both of them are not the type of father that you are since you came to Jesus.
Absolutely.
And so
it must direct antithesis.
It must have been more of the trauma. So
Yes.
So it must have led you to be like an explosion. Is that correct?
Yeah, I remember one day my stepfather coming home from work, and he would go into the dining room and take a quart of vodka and just chug it down.
Wow.
I didn't even know how he could stand after drinking all that.
Wow.
And yet he would come out. And I remember one day going up to him and saying, "Arthur, why is it every time you look at me, I feel such hatred in your eyes?" And he said to me, "I'm glad you asked." He said, "When I look at you, you look exactly like your father.
Oh, wow.
And I hate your father, which means I hate you."
Wow.
So to a 14-year-old boy who just came out of all that trauma with his real father, it was a real traumatic moment for me.
I want to ask you, Rex,
Sure.
Did you ever think of suicide?
Absolutely. Suicidal thoughts would flash across my mind, and thoughts about at least running away. How do I escape this pain? But the reality is, if you've got pain in your heart, no matter where you go and what you do, that pain just follows you, because nobody can run from themselves.
And so now, what type of explosion did you take with in the situation that is mentally destroying your life? Drugs, women, robbing, whatever.
Well, ultimately, I was thrown out of the house by that stepfather when I was 16, and went from a beautiful home in Greenwich, Connecticut, to a tiny roach-infested room in this dive hotel in Stamford, Connecticut. And that's where I started getting migraine headaches that were so bad I had to hit my head against the wall for a moment of relief.
What?
Because there was no real medication then to deal with those things.
Wow.
And so I started going after women and chasing women in high school and literally trying to have some kind of a sexual relationship with every woman I could get my hands on because it distracted me from the pain that I was feeling.
The apple doesn't fall far away from the tree.
Exactly. I had seen my father do it. He was still my idol, believe it or not, and was one of the reasons why I also wasn't able to get along with my stepfather, because when I would meet with him, he would tell me horrible things about my father and lies about my mother, which just exacerbated the anger and animus that I took back into the house.
Wow. You were ripe for hell.
I was right on track.
You were right on track, going down to eternal damnation.
That's right.
And so now you have your any woman that you wanted, you had, because you were most likely a handsome man.
I was.
And you still are. Okay, so
thank you very much for saying that. Although at my age,
don't worry.
I think that ship may have passed, but my wife still loves me. And she's the only one that's important in that area.
That's it. You know. Well, number one is Jesus, and you know that. Yeah. So in other words,
I know that.
Did that fill the void with all these women, or was it still an emptiness that you had to do something else to maybe fill the void or give you a high?
Well, in high school, it was women and gambling. I cut half my junior and senior year in high school to go to the track in the day because I knew I'd see my father from a distance because he was a gambling addict. He lost all our savings, all our money, all the money he made from being Juan Valdez at the track. But I knew I would see him from a distance. Because
he was your idol.
Because my idol.
Yeah.
And then at night, we'd play cards or we'd go bowling and gamble, and I wasn't very good at any of it. I lost.
Were you getting high too with them?
Yeah, we were getting, when we'd see each other, we would, smoke pot or do some coke, but yeah, it was a downward spiral. It was the law of entropy happening in my life. Everything spiraling down.
Now he's losing all the money at the track. Okay, you're coming from a roach-infested place. You talk about putting logs of wood on the fire. I mean, did you ever think in your mind, because you need money, did you ever maybe, let me see if I can go rob a store, rob a bodega, rob a bank, or anything like that?
You know, in high school, my sin nature hadn't quite developed that far. It wasn't until I went off to a junior college in Arizona and started actually receiving drugs from some of the narcotic DEA agents who were monitoring that border in Cochise, Arizona. And they would give us, myself and my roommate, some of the drugs, and we'd sell them and kick back money to them.
The DEA agents.
Absolutely.
The ones that are supposed to stop it.
Absolutely.
And turn it in.
Absolutely. I mean, most of them, I'm sure, are legitimate and wonderful. And I'm a friend of law enforcement in a major way now. But there are going to be some that are crooked everywhere.
There's always a ram in the thicket, right? In everything. You know, whatever it is, law enforcement, medical field, it just doesn't matter.
The ram was the solution.
Yeah, well,
these guys are certainly not the solution.
Well, put it like this right here. Okay, put it like this right here. There's always a remnant of good people.
Yeah.
Put it like
and
that.
And a fly in the ointment.
That's good. A fly in the ointment. So now you have the corrupt ones that are maybe this big.
Yeah.
And so now you're dealing drugs and you're getting back to them. And now are you using the drugs that you're dealing with too?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then, after a couple of semesters in college, I was thrown out for some problems with fire chief's daughter, who was my girlfriend, who told me she was using birth control, and then I wound up getting her pregnant, and my friends suggested I cut the baby out of her stomach, and they bought me a knife, and I chased her around the women's dorm, and
Wow.
and that got me expelled from school.
Wow.
And I can't say even if I'd caught her, I would have done it, but the fact that I would even consider it
The mind.
is absolute insanity.
And that's what the devil does. I mean, you have people today, as you know, just get guns and go shoot people at random and stuff like
Insanity.
that. And that's what the devil has come into this country, because we've kicked God out of this country.
That's right.
We've kicked God out of the school system. We've kicked God out of this country, and we're reaping what we sow. And it's horrible. And so after you got thrown out of school, what was going on then now?
So my father said if I came back to New York, he'd break my legs. So I thought there's no future in that. So I went to California and and started living with my mother's brother and his wife, and they were Christian Scientists. And I had sort of flirted with Christian Science when I was much, much younger, because my mother's parents had been Christian Scientists. And and they tried to bring me to Christian Science meetings and things, and I wasn't too sure about that. My first job out there was working as a busboy in a restaurant, and so I started dealing marijuana as a busboy in the restaurant. I found somebody who had a little marijuana and fronted it to me, and I started selling ounces to people, and then I started selling pounds, and then I didn't need that job anymore, and I started selling 100-pound lots, and it just continued to increase from there. And and then my father had lost the Juan Valdez commercial and was just floating aimlessly in New York. I said, "Hey, Dad, I'm making money. Why don't you come out and we'll be partners?" And so he came out to California, and that's when we became drug dealing partners.
Now, for you to be dealing 100 pounds,
Yeah.
Was there a tie with the mob?
A very loose one.
Because
at that point.
they probably knew about it, right? And you know, because they know. And for somebody to deal it without being like that, that's pretty like unheard of. You know, because a lot of them would just be angry and stuff. So now your father and you are dealing drugs together, okay? Your father kind of doesn't like you because he wants to break your legs if you come to New York. Did he kind of screw you in this partnership, or did it remain a good partnership?
I'd say he got more thrill out of screwing my girlfriends. And so that definitely created a problem in our relationship. And then I started sleeping with his girlfriends, and so it was, you know, I still had this very sick and twisted love for him. And so we continued selling drugs together, and in LA at the time, there were a lot of independent drug dealers who were not mafia related. And so we were kind of those until we switched over to cocaine, and then he was from Cuba, so he had connections with the Cuban mafia, and then we got connected with the Cuban mafia in LA, and that was sort of that mafia connection.
So, Rex, why don't you just share now how you came to Christ?
Sure.
Yeah.
I had a drug overdose, as I had mentioned earlier, which really disabled me in my capacity to think and put ideas together. And shortly after that, I was doing a drug deal, and somebody tried to rob me, and it became a shootout between this person who tried to rob me and myself through the hills of Beverly Hills. And as we were shooting at each other, I heard a voice say to me, "Rex, if you don't get out now, next time you're dead." And up to that point, I just have to say, I was too stupid to be scared. But when I heard that voice, a chill ran through me from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. And I remember dropping my gun to my side, turning around, and walking back to my house. And I remember it was almost as if the bullets that he was shooting at me sounded like they were in the distance. God must have put an angel behind me to catch the bullets, because there's no reason in the world why he shouldn't have shot me. And I came back into my house, and I realized by the non-reaction of the people there that they had set me up. So I threw them out of my house, and I called my father up, and I said, Dad, I'm not going to deal drugs anymore. And I remember him laughing at me, and when I look back on it now, it was a demon laughing at me. The way he sounded, it wasn't even his voice laughing at me. And he said, you'll be back dealing drugs in no time. You know how to do nothing else well. I never thought I was a very good drug dealer either, so that meant I did nothing well. And so after that, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I didn't know how I was going to make any money. I was in my bank, and I used to rob banks with forgery and all sorts of madness in my criminal career. And I was in my bank taking out the last $20 I had. And there was this beautiful girl in the bank, Pam Newman. Her name was Norman then. She got remarried. Her name is Newman now. And Pam looked at me. We smiled at each other. And we started talking. And one thing led to another. And she said, oh, do you know Jesus? And immediately what popped in my mind was, wow, the only Jesus I know is a guy named Jesus I used to buy drugs from. I'm sure that's not who she's talking about.
But you know, Rex, we have to end it now. But it was through her that you eventually came to Christ.
Yes.
And your whole life has changed.
That's right.
And so thank you, Rex, for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do another show, Rex and I. And so you just, next week, watch that show also. It's going to be about how he had 3 men in his life that he had to forgive. His father you heard about, his stepfather that you heard about, and his father-in-law who hated him just as much as his father and stepfather did. And you're going to see what happened to a man, how Christ changed his life to love on his father who came to Christ, his stepfather, and his father-in-law. Thank you for watching our broadcast today, but remember, without Christ in your life, you cannot get to heaven and you'll not have your sins forgiven. God bless you.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain in his hands. He's got the whole